Good afternoon and welcome. It's great to welcome President Obama again on his 5th visit to the United Kingdom. Barack has been President for more than 7 years. I've been Prime Minister for nearly 6 years, and our two countries have been working together through some of the most difficult and troubled global times. We face the aftermath of the banking crisis, the need to revive growth and create jobs in our economies, new threats to our security from Russia in the east to the rise of Islamist terrorism in the south, and of course huge global challenges like Ebola and climate change. And through it all, the strong and essential partnership between our nations has never been more important. When 70 years ago last month, Winston Churchill first described the special relationship, it was not merely an enduring expression of friendship, it was a way of working together. It was about two nations, kindred spirits, who share the same values and so often the same approaches to the many issues that we face. And just as for our predecessors, that has been true for Barack and me, whether we've been working to deliver economic security, national security, or new emerging challenges. And today we've been discussing all three. On economic security, we've succeeded in getting our economies growing and creating jobs for our people. The global economy still faces serious challenges, but last year Britain and the United States were the two fastest growing major economies in the world. And we both know just how important trade deals are in driving global growth. So Barack and I remain among the most determined to achieve our vision of a US-EU trade deal. And we're working hard to push this forward because it would add billions to our economies and set the standards for the rest of the world to follow. On national security, together with our partners in the EU, we've used our economic muscle to avoid the calamity of an Iranian nuclear weapon. We've delivered sanctions against Russia in response to its aggression against Ukraine. We've secured the first ever global and legally binding deal on climate change, being formally signed today by over 150 governments at the United Nations. And we've transformed the way that we use our aid, our diplomacy and our military together to make progress on some of the most difficult issues of our time. For example, in East Africa, we've helped to turn around the prospects for Somalia. For instance, thanks to an EU operation led by Britain, supported by America, its waters are no longer a safe haven for pirates. And in West Africa, British leadership in Europe secured €1 billion to support our efforts in helping the people of the region to defeat the outbreak of Ebola, with Britain taking the lead in Sierra Leone, the United States, in Liberia, France, and Guinea. But just as we've made important progress in all these areas, so there are many more that need a lot more work. There's no doubt that the situation in Libya is immensely challenging, but we now finally have a government of national accord with whom we can work. While in Syria and Iraq, we are continuing coalition efforts to defeat and degrade Daesh. More than 25,000 Daesh fighters have now been killed, over 600 in the last month alone, with the total number of Daesh fighters now estimated to be at its lowest for about 2 years. The Iraqi security forces are steadily pushing Daesh out of its territory, this week almost entirely clearing them out of the town of Hit. And in Syria, our partners have liberated the large Kurdish areas in the northeast and cut off the main route between Raqqa and Mosul. We also discussed efforts to deal with the migration crisis. This doesn't directly affect the United States, and in the UK, we've maintained our borders and we will continue to do so. But we both know the challenge this poses to our friends and our allies and to the continent of Europe. This is the sort of challenge that can only be tackled effectively through international cooperation. NATO is helping to reduce the number of migrants in the eastern Mediterranean, and Barack and I have discussed how NATO might now contribute to the EU's efforts in the central Mediterranean too. We also need to do more to break the business model of the people smugglers. So together with our EU partners and the Libyan government, we'll look at whether there's more we can do to strengthen the Libyan Coast Guard. Barack and I will be discussing this further when we meet with the leaders of France, Germany and Italy in Hanover on Monday. And this will be another opportunity to show that how working together collectively we can better protect ourselves from the threats that we face. We also covered a number of new and emerging challenges, where it will be more important than ever that we work together with our international partners to identify problems and deal with them rapidly. Just as we've done with Ebola, we now need the same international cooperation on dealing with the Zika virus, on the challenge of antimicrobial resistance, on cybersecurity, and on tackling corruption. Britain is holding a big anti-corruption summit here in London next month, which Secretary Kerry will attend. And Barack and I have talked today about some of the things we want it to achieve. One of the biggest problems is that if you're a country that wants to take action against corruption, you have to go all around the globe to lobby for help. So we'd like to see an international anti-corruption coordination centre to help law enforcement agencies and investigators work together right across different jurisdictions. And if we get international agreement on this next month, both Britain and America will help contribute to set it up. All this work we have done together, and at the same time, I think we got to know each other very well. I'm honoured to have Barack as a friend. He's taught me the rules of basketball. He's beaten me at table tennis. I remember very fondly the barbecue we had in number 10 Downing Street, serving servicemen and women who serve our countries and serve our countries together here in the United Kingdom. I've always found Barack someone who gives sage advice. He's a man with a very good heart, and he's been a very good friend and always will be a good friend, I know, to the United Kingdom. Let me finish by saying this. In all the areas we've discussed today, our collective power and reach is amplified by Britain's membership of the European Union. Let me be clear, when it comes to the special relationship between our two countries, there's no greater enthusiast than me. I'm very proud to have had the opportunity to be Prime Minister and to stand outside the White House, listening to this man, my friend Barack, say that the special relationship between our countries has never been stronger. But I've never felt constrained in any way in strengthening this relationship by the fact that we're in the European Union. In fact, quite the reverse. We deliver for our people through all the international groups that we're part of. We enhance our security through the membership of NATO. We further our prosperity through the G7 and the G20. And like those organisations, Britain's membership of the EU gives us a powerful tool to deliver on the prosperity and security that our people need, and to stand up for the values that our countries share. And now, I think, is a time to stay true to those values and to stick together with our friends and allies in Europe and around the world. Thank you very much. Barack.
Thank you, David. And as always, it is wonderful to be here in London and to meet with my good friend David Cameron. I confess I've also come back to wish Her Majesty the Queen a very happy 90th birthday. Earlier today, Michelle and I had the honor to join Her Majesty and His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh, as their guests at Windsor Castle, where we conveyed the good wishes of the American people. I have to say I have never been driven by a Duke of Edinburgh before. And I can report that it was very smooth riding. As for Her Majesty, the Queen's been a source of inspiration for me, like so many people around the world. She is truly one of my favorite people. And should we be fortunate enough to reach 90, may we be as vibrant as she is. She's an astonishing person and a real jewel to the world, and not just to the United Kingdom. The alliance between the United States and the United Kingdom is one of the oldest and one of the strongest that the world's ever known. When the U.S. and the U.K. stand together, we make our countries more secure, we make our people more prosperous, and we make the world safer and better. That's one of the reasons why my first overseas visit as president more than 7 years ago was here to London at a time of global crisis. And the one thing I knew, as green as I was as a new president, was that it was absolutely vital that the United States and the United Kingdom, working together in an international forum, tackle the challenges that lie ahead. Our success depended on our ability to coordinate and to be able to leverage our relationship to have an impact on other countries. I met with David on that visit. He wasn't yet Prime Minister. But just as our nations share a special relationship, David and I have shared an extraordinary partnership. He has proven to be a great friend and is one of my closest and most trusted partners. Over the 6 years or so that our terms have overlapped, we have met or spoken more times than I can count. We've shared our country's beers with each other. He vouches for his, I vouch for mine. Taken in a basketball game in America. David, I think you should recall we were actually partners in that ping pong game. And we lost to some school children. I can't remember whether they were 8 or 10, but they were decidedly shorter than we were, and they whooped us. Samantha and Michelle, our better halves, have become good friends as well. And it's the depth and the breadth of that special relationship that has helped us tackle some of the most daunting challenges of our time. Around the world, our joint efforts, as David mentioned, have stopped the outbreak of Ebola, helped Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, forged a climate agreement in Paris that hopefully will help to protect our planet for future generations. And today, on Earth Day, our governments, along with about 170 others, are in New York to sign that agreement. And the U.S. is committed to formally joining it this year, which should help it take effect years earlier than anybody expected. We also discussed the full array of challenges to our shared security. We remain resolute in our efforts to prevent terrorist attacks against our people and to continue the progress that we've made in rolling back and ultimately defeating ISIL. Our forces, as David mentioned, are systematically degrading ISIL's finances and safe havens and removing its top leaders from the battlefield. And we've got to keep working to improve security and information sharing across Europe and to stem the flow of foreign fighters into and out of Syria. We discussed our efforts to resolve political conflicts in the Middle East, from Yemen to Syria to Libya, in order to increase the prospects for stability. In Libya, going forward, we have an opportunity to support a new government and help Libyans root out extremist elements. In Syria, as challenging as it is, we still need to see more progress towards an enduring ceasefire, and we continue to push for greater humanitarian access to the people who need it most. We have to continue to invest in NATO so that we can meet our overseas commitments from Afghanistan to the Aegean. We have to resolve the conflict in the Ukraine and reassure allies who are rightly concerned about Russian aggression. All NATO allies should aim for the NATO target of spending 2% of their GDP on defense, something that David has made sure happens here in the UK to meet that standard. We discussed new actions we can take to address the refugee crisis, including with our NATO allies. And because a strong defense relies on more than just military spending, but on helping to unleash the potential of others to live freer and more prosperous lives, I want to thank the people of the United Kingdom for their extraordinary generosity as one of the world's foremost donors of humanitarian aid. We talked about promoting jobs and stronger growth through increased transatlantic trade and investment so that our young people can achieve greater opportunity and prosperity. And yes, the Prime Minister and I discussed the upcoming referendum here on whether or not the UK should remain part of the European Union. Let me be clear. Ultimately, this is something that the British voters have to decide for themselves. But as part of our special relationship, part of being friends is to be honest and to let you know what I think. And speaking honestly, the outcome of that decision is a matter of deep interest to the United States because it affects our prospects as well. The United States wants a strong United Kingdom as a partner. And the United Kingdom is at its best when it's helping to lead a strong Europe. It leverages UK power to be part of the European Union. As I wrote in the op-ed here today, I don't believe the EU moderates British influence in the world, it magnifies it. The EU has helped to spread British values and practices across the continent. The single market brings extraordinary economic benefits to the United Kingdom. And that ends up being good for America, because we're more prosperous when one of our best friends and closest allies has a strong, stable, growing economy. Americans want Britain's influence to grow, including within Europe. The fact is, in today's world, no nation is immune to the challenges that David and I just discussed. And in today's world, solving them requires collective action. All of us cherish our sovereignty. My country is pretty vocal about that. But the U.S. also recognizes that we strengthen our security through our membership in NATO. We strengthen our prosperity through organizations like the G7 and the G20. And I believe the UK strengthens both our collective security and prosperity through the EU. In the 21st century, the nations that make their presence felt on the world stage aren't the nations that go it alone, but the nations that team up to aggregate their power and multiply their influence. And precisely because Britain's values and institutions are so strong and so sound, we want to make sure that that influence is heard, that it's felt, that it influences how other countries think about critical issues. We have confidence that when the UK is involved in a problem, that they're going to help solve it in the right way. That's why the United States cares about this. You know, for centuries, Europe was marked by war and by violence. The architecture that our two countries helped build with the EU has provided the foundation for decades of relative peace and prosperity on that continent. What a remarkable legacy. A legacy born in part out of what took place in this building. Before we walked out, I happened to see Enigma on display. And that was a reminder of the incredible innovation and collaboration of the Allies in World War II, and the fact that neither of us could have won that alone. And in the same way, after World War II, we built out the international institutions that, yes, occasionally constrained us. But we willingly allowed those constraints because we understood that by doing so, we were able to institutionalize and internationalize the basic values of rule of law and freedom and democracy that would benefit our citizens as well as people around the world. Yeah, I think there's a British poet who once said, "No man's an island." Even an island as beautiful as this. We're stronger together. And if we continue to tackle our challenges together, then future generations will look back on ours, just as we look back on the previous generation of English and American citizens who worked so hard to make this world safer and more secure and more prosperous. And they'll say that we did our part. And that's important. That's important not just here. That's important in the United States as well. Thanks.